Right, good morning everyone. Welcome to Cabinet on the 4th of June 2024. I hope everyone is well. Attendance, we're all logged in. All members are present. There's 6 of us here, and Councillor Daniels and Councillor Jones are on the link. So welcome everyone. Apologies, there are no member apologies to note. I know there's apologies from Nigel Aurelius. No other apologies, I don't think. So if you move swiftly to agenda item 3, which is declarations of interest. Dennis.
Thank you, Leader. I'm not aware of any interests to be declared today, but if members enter into a debate or ask a specific question in relation to any item on the agenda, then you can consider declaring an interest at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, and if anything does arise during the meeting, you're welcome to raise that with me and I'll bring Dennis in. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is the confirmation of the minutes from the 20th of February. And the Cabinet meeting on that date. Is there anything anyone would like to raise from those minutes? If not, are we happy that they're an accurate record? Yep. That's carried. Item 5 then is updates on actions. You'll see from the action sheet that all actions noted have been completed. Anything anyone would like to raise from those? No? Okay. Item 6 then is the financial results, 23-24. I'm going to hand over initially to Dave Lilly on these.
This report outlines the financial position for 23-24. The underlying accounts that support these figures and from which they're based have been published within the legislative timescales of the end of May. And the audit of the accounts is due to be scheduled to start in July of this year. So the revenue position itself has produced a broadly outlined position, online balancing position, after contributions to reserves. One item to note is that during the close-down process, because of the positive position that we haven't had to draw down contributions from the general fund balance to support the energy contributions that we planned when we set the 23-24 budget back in February 23. In doing this, it's protected our resources for future financial sustainability. Moving on to the specifics of the favourable position. So the position arose primarily through delivery of 99% of the budgeted mitigations. So we budgeted for £8.6 million of mitigations, and only 54,000 of those mitigations weren't delivered. All survey areas have experienced significant savings in staffing, both through staff turnover and vacancies and the difficulties that services have had on filling roles. We have received grants from external bodies which have allowed us to support the core costs and offset core costs into grants. We've received additional one-off income across all our services. And we received additional investment interest income on our bank balances, and we also rescheduled some debt as well during the year to reduce down the level of interest that we were paying out. The final thing I'd like to say on a positive side, is that we also did some early work on the 24-25 budget, which allowed us to make savings, which accrued prior to the start of the 24-25 year. So on the flip side of those positive positions, there were some adverse positions which I'd like to draw out. One is in relation to the ongoing pressures in children's social care, and primarily there in the availability of resources by which we can support our vulnerable children. Which meant that we had to place children in more costly solutions to meet the needs. There were additional costs that we incurred as budgeted due to the planned closure of the community farm, and there were some additional costs in the running of our waste and recycling services relating to additional vehicles and crews. Moving on to the reserves position of the authority, paragraph 4.1 outlines how we have allocated the underspend. So specifically there, we have we're suggesting that the underspend is allocated as in that table. So during the year, the authority received funding from former European funded projects. And what we're proposing is that that resource, the 1.3 million, is channelled into a reserve to meet the costs of any severance costs that are going to become payable at the end of the current SPF programme. And if that resource isn't needed, that would be considered in future budget rounds to consider alongside the financial resilience of the authority. Excuse me. We're also proposing that we create a pay contingency reserve to recognise the current uncertainty around pay demands and pay awards in 24-25. So within the 24-25 budget, we have a 4% base budget contribution. What we're proposing is we'll put a one-off funding source in of an extra 1% that will provide a single-year funding source to allow the authority to fund it in year without destabilising services, which would then need to be considered going forward in the longer-term plan if a pay award of over 4% is triggered. The Council also received late in the budget process, or after the budget process of 24-25, a notification that its allocation for the People Development Grant, which supports our children, was going to be lower than we anticipated. So to protect our schools from that late reduction, we are proposing that a resource is put into reserves to allow our schools to be cushioned from that reduction in 24-25, and then that reduction will be based, will be considered as part of the 25-26 medium-term financial plan considerations, and will also allow the Council time to discuss further with Welsh Government the rationale and the reasons for that reduction. The Council also received some unexpected investment income, interest income from relating to the SPF monies that are deposited with Rhondda Cynon Taf. So Rhondda Cynon Taf have repaid or paid interest balances to all partners of the SPF. As yet, we are unsure of what the conditions of this resource. So what we're suggesting is, at the moment, is that we put that into a reserve until we know if there are any conditions that come with that resource to protect the Council from using it. And the final point on the reserves allocation is the 400,000 that we're proposing to put into the Children's and Family Reserve. This is something that we considered and commented on during the budget process for 24-25 and was a central part of that service's budget proposals for setting a balanced budget. As part of the year-end process, we also reviewed our corporate reserves to see if they were still relevant and needed. That review identified that there were no proposals existed for the use of the Peoples and Place Reserve that was set up back in 2021. So it was therefore proposed within this report that £1.5 million, that £1.5 million balance is allocated the general fund balance to support the wider financial sustainability of the Council. The review that we undertook of the corporate reserves also outlines consolidating some of our reserves through either those reserves come into end of the process or to provide further contingencies going forward. So the first one on there is, in the table outlined in 6.6, is transferring the strategic change reserve into the redundancy and change reserve. So all resources for change are now held in one reserve. And we talked on the £1.5 million of the People in Place. There was a small reserve created back in 2021, again, for electric vehicles. That has yet to be utilised, but we're proposing to transfer that into the Climate Change and Energy Efficiency Reserve. There was small residual balance on the COVID-19 recovery reserve, so that is being transferred into the corporate redundancy and change reserve. And then we transferred in £2 million out of the climate change reserve into the asset investment reserve to recognise that the vast majority of the work that the climate change reserve will be undertaking would be on our buildings. So paragraph 6.1 of the report summarises our reserves as at the end of last year, end of March 24, and you'll see there that our general fund balance has stayed broadly, has increased by approximately £1 million after taking into account the transfers in and the in-year usages. There's been a small reduction in a reduction of 900,000 on our service area reserves. Our school balances have also reduced over the period, with only 3 of our schools being in deficit position, and only at a small level as well. Our corporate reserves stay broadly static at £14.8 million, and our insurance reserves again remain static at £3.4 million. Section 7 of the report reaffirms our reserves policy on how we will govern, how the usage of our reserves will be governed, and it remains static over previous years. The final part of the report, moving back into section 5, talks about our capital programme. So as well as our revenue spend, we also spent £23 million on our capital activities. The main schemes that we supported there were the Crown Bridge Schools extension, the development work on the new primary at Maindy School, the continued development of the Pontypool and Newing train station park and ride facility, the development of the British site, our investment in our highways infrastructure, and the support of the vulnerables through our DFG's grants. There were some late slippage which came to light at the year end of approximately £6 million, but those resources have been carried forward into 25 for the conclusion, to allow those schemes to be concluded as planned. A further slippage of £1.7 million has also arose on the unallocated resource and the professional fees. These two slippages have allowing us to review the current capital programme, and we're currently looking at developing a revised capital programme which we're looking to bring to council in July to utilise the uncommitted resource that we currently have. So with the recommendations in the report we outlined at the end of the report, saying that Cabinet should note the outturn position, approves the contributions outlined, and approves the rationalisations of the corporate reserves as outlined, and also reapproves the reserves policy as outlined. Thanks so much, Leader.
Thank you very much, Dave, and thank you for that very positive report. I know sound financial management and sort of financial sustainability might not be the most sort of glamorous or exciting thing to talk about, but it's essential for everything that we do, and landing the complex services that we run as a council, and within 0.1% of the budget that was set at the beginning of the year is an extremely achievement that officers should be proud of. And it certainly reflects the calm and comprehensive way that we've confronted the difficult times that have faced the services that we run in recent years. We mentioned the complexity of those services. So many of them are very difficult to budget for, the unpredictability of demand and also of circumstances, and the variety of services that the council run, from obviously social care and schools across the neighbourhood environmental services. There's a huge amount of complex services there that need to be funded properly, and that sound financial management is an important part of that, because without that, the people on the front line can't operate effectively. Also, I think it's a reflection of the way that budgeting is done across the council as a corporate thing, and we don't have silos budgeting in this council. We work together to resolve issues when they come up, and to make sure that service areas within the council can continue to deliver services. Really pleased that the mitigations, 99% of those have been been delivered, because again, that's a way that the budget could be destabilised if it didn't happen. So the delivery of those mitigations in a calm and planned way, I think, is a good thing. I think that's partly due to the 12-month budget cycles that we've gone in the previous year and years before then. I think it's important that we take our time to set our budgets, and we use the whole year to try and set a budget, even though we're often planning in the dark a little bit because we don't know what our budget's going to be before sort of December of the year before. So I think that calm planning across the year is the best way for us to utilise time and to make sure that the mitigations that we put in are things that can be achieved, and we don't then have to address an in-year situation which can be very destabilising. And I think the work that we've done with schools as well, I think, is worth noting. You know, thank you to Richard and the team, both in education and finance, for the way that we've worked with schools to help them also deal with a very difficult budgeting situation. None of that makes things easy, but I think it gives us the best possible chance of resourcing services and allowing people on the front line to go about their jobs as best as they possibly can. I think it's also played a huge part in allowing us to set the lowest or equal lowest council tax in Wales across the last 3 years. So those are all things that are of huge benefit. I think looking to the future, obviously the challenge, both in revenue terms and in capital, are not insubstantial. How we sort of meet those challenges, especially in capital, I think that's financing the projects that we want to do across council areas. You know, improved and new school buildings, for example. How are we going to meet that challenge? How are we going to meet the challenge of decarbonisation and net zero in the future as well? That's something that I think we'll have to continue to put our minds to, because that's a huge challenge that I think lays across all councils and public services across the country at the moment. And I'd just like to close. I know this is Dave's last cabinet, and he'll probably frown at me for saying this, because I know he doesn't like the limelight, but I just think the way that this budget has been delivered and previous budgets are a huge testament to Dave's character and the way that he's respected across the council, the way that his calmness exudes across the council. I know that's not the case everywhere, and you know that calmness, I think, helps us get in the best possible position to close daunting budget gaps and to deal with difficult situations. But the way that Dave is trusted across the council and is renowned for being very clear and very open and very approachable as well, that's something that we've appreciated greatly, and we wish you a very happy retirement, and we'll all miss your skill and your calmness around the place. But we hope that you enjoy your retirement. So thank you for everything you've done. With that, any questions, colleagues? Are we happy then to move to the recommendations at paragraph 10.1, that Cabinet notes the outturn position for 23-24, approves the contributions to reserves as outlined, approves the rationalisation of the corporate reserves as outlined, and reapproves the reserves policy? Have a show of hands in favour? That's unanimous. No one against or abstaining. So that report is carried. Thank you again, Dave. Okay, item 7 then is the report on the disposal of the former Abersachen Library and Fairfield House. Jo, do you want to come in first on this?
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. So as part of Project Apollo, we've reviewed all our council-owned properties, and we've identified both the former Abersachen Library and Fairfield House as no longer required for operational purposes. The report requests approval for both sites to be declared surplus to council requirements, and that council's asset management team commence immediate preparations for market disposals of both properties. So a market sale would generate a capital receipt for the council and also make an additional future saving on annual running costs. It's a short report. I can see Mark Thomas is online. I don't know if you'd like to add anything.
Thank you, Councillor. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Are we okay to... Any questions first on the report? Anything anyone would like to raise? The recommendations then are at paragraph 8. It's that Cabinet approves that the site of the former Abersachen Library in Fairfield House be declared surplus to council requirements with effect from the date of this report, that Cabinet authorises the council's asset management team to undertake a market disposal of both properties, and that Cabinet grants specific delegated authority to the executive members for economy, skills and regeneration, that's Joe Gordon, to determine any issues pertaining to the market disposal of both properties that will require member approval, and specifically, if I can say the word, the disposal price. We all happy to agree that report? Okay. Okay, that moves us on then to item 8, which is the report on the appointments to joint committees and partnership bodies. Okay, Jason, do you want to come in there?
Thanks, Leader. The purpose of the report is to seek confirmation of appointments to joint committees and partnership bodies where the responsibility for these appointments fall to Cabinet. The schedule of appointments is set out in Appendix 1. The proposal is that these appointments have immediate effect. It's also recommended that Cabinet continue to deal with matters relating to European and regional affairs and equalities rather than through subcommittees. There's one amendment to note in the schedule of appointments. Councillor Joe Gordon is identified as an appointment to the Torvine Strategic Canal Partnership Board, whereas it should record Councillor Sue Morgan alongside Councillors Slade and Ashley. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or points there? And I presume Sue and Joe, you're happy with that amendment? Otherwise, we get shouted at. Okay, are we happy then to move to the recommendations? The recommendations are at paragraph 7. Firstly, that Cabinet agrees the appointment to joint committees and a number of partnership bodies as listed in Appendix 1 to the report. Secondly, that these appointments have immediate effect until Cabinet next amends the appointments or the next local government elections. And thirdly, that Cabinet agrees European and regional affairs and equality matters continue to be dealt with at the meeting of full Cabinet rather than by subcommittees. Is everyone happy with those items? Okay, show of hands in favour. Right, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. That brings to an end the last report on Cabinet today. I hope you all have a nice day.